Welcome to the Dan Casper Show podcast, your chance to catch the full show anytime, anywhere. If you missed it live on the radio, no worries. We've got you covered with all the sports talk, opinions, interviews, and conversations from the show. From the Packers to the Brewers to the biggest stories in sports and around Wisconsin, it's all right here. This is the Dan Casper Show podcast. All right, here we go. The third quarter is up and rolling right now. Happy Monday, everybody. Hopefully you had a fantastic weekend and you're ready for a brand new work week here. Thanks for hanging out with us and tuning in and making us a part of your starts. We'll get back to some more draft talk, some more football talk as we're wrapping up the NFL draft from this past weekend. Also the Packers. What's this? Oh, never mind. Also, the Packers signing Jayden Reed to a contract extension. So we'll hit that up and talk a little bit about that. We got more baseball talk on the way here, too. Brewers dropping a series against the Pirates, nearly getting a perfect game from Paul Skeens on Friday night's game, but then Kyle Harrison bounces back and strikes out 12 in 6 innings yesterday. So Brewers have the off day today before beginning a series against the Diamondbacks starting tomorrow. So plenty of baseball talk. Continue to send me your best and worst from the weekend, our VFW Post 305 best and worst from the weekend. Send those on over to our texting line at 715-830-1912. Just let's do a quick local sports roundup brought to you by Carpet City Flooring Center in Eau Claire. No Justice for this morning, so I'll do my best to kind of fill in here a little bit. But if we start off in the college level of things, I mean, we're wrapping up some regular season stuff here. Let's start off with the Blue Golds first, shall we? Baseball-wise, I mean, it was a busy weekend for the Blue Gold baseball team, and they are one of the teams that are going to be entering the final week of their regular season this weekend. So the Blue Golds had a doubleheader on Saturday against Platteville. They lost both those games, but then rebounded nicely to sweep their other doubleheader yesterday against Platteville. So Blue Gold baseball is now at 19-16 on the season. So they've got a game scheduled against Whitewater on Wednesday, and then they'll wrap up the regular season against River Falls, a doubleheader on Friday and a doubleheader on Saturday. So that Whitewater game is going to be at Carson Park. River Falls will be on the road. Then we got the Y Championships starting next week. Kind of the same thing here for, you got Menominee baseball here. So we're kind of looking at the Blue Devils schedule. The Blue Devils 9-26 on this season. They've got their final matchups are coming up this Friday and Saturday, a doubleheader against Whitewater. So they're going to be on the road. The Blue Devils getting swept in 4 games against Oshkosh this past weekend, losing both their games on Saturday and both their games on Sunday. And then on the softball side of things here, again, they're wrapping up the regular season this week. So if we look at Blue Gold softball coming up here, the team currently 26-10. They're coming off this past weekend where they had a doubleheader against La Crosse, and they split that doubleheader, picking up an 8-7 win in their first game and then a 5-7 loss in their second game. So they've got UW Stouts coming up on Wednesday in a doubleheader. It's going to be in Eau Claire, and then Whitewater in a doubleheader on Saturday. Both of these doubleheaders are going to be in Eau Claire, and their WIAC tournament also begins next week. So softball, as we mentioned too, UW Stout softball is going to be going up against Eau Claire. They will wrap up their regular season against La Crosse on Saturday, and that is going to be in Menominee too. So track and field season, I know we had for the Blue Golds, it was a busy weekend in terms of track and field. They were hosting the Dick and Mary Johnson Invitational. They also had the Drake Relays. But now we get the WIAC Championships coming up Friday and Saturday. So WIAC Championships coming up. Big weekend for both Stouts and Blue Gold track and field teams. So Elsewhere, if we take a look quick here for a little golf action, shall we? Let's do a little golf action. Let's start off with the Blue Golds for some golf. So they just completed the SJU Spring Invitational. They've got WIAC Championship starting this week. So for the women's team, they will be going up against UW Stout coming up on Sunday. So got that on the docket as well. Let's stay with the Blue Golds here for a little bit because we've got we got a little lacrosse action going on. Yes. Okay. So Saturday they fell to Colorado College in Colorado Springs. So we've got WIAC championships beginning for them as well. Going back to Stout for some Stout action here. It was a busy weekend here coming up. Let me bring up the results here quickly. For the men's team for golf, they were over at the SJU Spring Invitational where they tied for 7th. But the women's team, they were at the Wartburg Spring Invite. They finished 2nd out of 10 teams. So a very, very good showing for the women's golf team. UW Stout flag football was also in action this past weekend. They picked up a win against the University of Northwestern Minnesota, and they also picked up a win against Augustana University and a win against Bethel University. They did fall to Concordia College, and they did fall to St. Olaf. So really busy weekend for some flag football action. But looking ahead, we've got tennis. The women's tennis team for Stout, they're going to be at the University of Northwestern St. Paul coming up this week. For the Blue Gold side of things, for a little tennis action here, because they're going to be starting to wrap up some things here too. The men's tennis team so far 13-4 this season. They defeated Milwaukee School of Engineering 4-3. They've got the WIAC championship coming up on Saturday, and then for the women's side of things for tennis, they're 13-10. A winning season for them too. They're coming off of a win against, a win against the Milwaukee School of Engineering this past Saturday. So that's just kind of a quick rundown looking at some WIAC stuff. I know we've got a lot going on in the baseball world, softball world for high school, track and field, and golf and soccer and all that. Brandon Berg will join us a little bit later on this week to kind of give us the latest and greatest in terms of the high school seasons too, as we start to maybe wrap up some of those regular seasons and getting closer to conference tournaments and maybe even some postseason action as well. So, but that's a quick local sports roundup brought to you by Carpet City Flooring Center. We've got Zach on the Section 105 chat room saying, solid draft day by the Packers. Really like the edge from Penn State. I would have really liked to see them draft another lineman. Training camp is going to be very interesting with the kicking situation. Looking forward to seeing what Smack can do. So let's talk some more draft, shall we? We'll take a quick break, and we'll be right back after these few words. With spring here, it's time to get back outside and to enjoy the season. And whether you're heading to the range or getting ready for hunting season or just gearing up for some time in the great outdoors, Tilden Gun is your local stop for selection, for service, and expertise. They offer a wide range of firearms and accessories, along with a knowledgeable staff who can help you find exactly what fits your needs. No pressure, just straight answers and real guidance. It's about making sure that you're comfortable, you're confident, and you're ready for your next outing. Spring is the season to get prepared, to get organized, and to get outside, and Tilden Gun is here to help you do just that. So stop on in and see what they've got in stock and see why so many in the Chippewa Valley trust them year after year. Tilden Gun, your hometown source for gear, service, and expertise. All right, so we've got Surveyor says, as a Packers fan, I'm incredibly happy with who they drafted. It seemed they addressed needs rather than best available. My personal favorite is the DT, defensive tackle from Missouri, a big nose that will gobble up double teams in the run, and with enough pass rush ability to help Hargrave collapse the pocket on the interior. With more QBs going to 3- and 5-step drops and the ball getting out in 2 seconds or less, you need a guy to push the middle to disrupt that first look receiver. Rick says, I think Burton was their best pick. Really talented kid and great value at that pick. Also, we've got a few more saying they like, or this was Ben also saying the defensive tackle from Missouri was their favorite. And then we had Smack. That's from Kyle, the new kicker coming over to Green Bay. So keep those coming. Keep them coming. Really quick, I think I saw. Oh, Brandon said, speaking of torn Achilles, maybe 0 isn't the number to wear in the NBA. Yeah, good point. That's another one there too, Brandon, who chimed in on the Section 105 chats on YouTube. But back to the green and gold here really quick. So looking back at this draft class, your overall thoughts without sending a letter grade. Careful of if you are reading blogs and articles and pieces that do grade these draft classes and such, and I'm not saying you shouldn't, and I'm not saying completely avoid them. Okay, there's a lot of good nuggets in there, but remember the context of everything too. Okay, so like one of these pieces that I was reading a little bit had the Packers draft class ranked 26th. And everybody's like, I should say, but a lot of people probably see that and be like, see, people think this is a bad class and blah, blah, blah. Biggest reasons were the first-round pick and not a lot of volume. There was only 6, okay? So context is key to this whole thing, and this is why I don't like doing that immediately after a draft, because what if all 6 of these end up being like major hits, and then you're looking at 2-3 years from now, it's like, dang, that class was huge, big time. I honestly feel like the player that's probably going to have the most impact or the most immediate impact is probably going to be their new kicker, Trey Smack. I feel like he's in a position right now where he's going to beat out McManus. I don't feel like you trade up. You trade up to go get a kicker. I feel like, he's already kind of, I don't want to label him starter, but I feel like he's got the advantage over McManus right now. And just out of curiosity, let me look at McManus's contract. It's not that big anyways, but I was just kind of curious. Does it open up like a couple of $1 million here? Let me see. So, yeah. He has a cap hit of $5.3 million. It would be a dead cap of 4.3, so you'd be only opening up a little under $1 million. Not that much. They did pay him his $1 million roster bonus. I don't think that really matters here at this point. But all right. Now, if it was next year, they'd open up about $5 million in cap space. So, but I feel like the kicker Smack is going to have the quickest impact right away at this season, because I feel like he's going to be the starting kicker right now. And that's not to say that none of these guys are eventually going to have impacts. When I look at this draft, there's 2 words that come to my mind. It's athleticism and it's physicality. Because I look at the corners. Let's start off with the corners here, okay? And you look at them, and you read all the scouting reports from the experts. You watch some of the YouTube clips out there. We'll start off with Brandon, their first pick. Or I should say their first pick in the draft. Okay, I know it's not first round. But you look at Brandon Cisse, and dude's fast. He's got great athletic traits, and he's a very good run defender from that corners position. Go look up Brandon's stuff on YouTube, and right away, depending on which video you watch, if we watch the same one, you're going to see a couple clips right away where he's right at the line of scrimmage taking down the ball carrier. I know a lot of scouting reports or scouts like to use the phrase willing and run support. I would say this dude, from what I've watched and what I've seen and some of the stuff that I've read, I think I'd rate it a little bit higher than willing. I'd say he's pretty darn good at run support. At least he's not afraid to get in there and mix it up. So you add the speed, you add the athleticism. He's a physical corner. And then even their 6th-round pick, Jackson from Alabama. He's got speed, and he's another physical type of corner. I feel like he's probably going to be in line right away where he's going to be an impact player as maybe a gunner on special teams right away. But I look at these two corners, and I see that they have athleticism, and they bring a physical presence. That, to me, is something that this cornerback room really lacked last year. And to, I guess, pick on him a little bit, I'm going to look at Carrington Valentine. Because how many times did it seem like Carrington Valentine whiffed on tackles? We're probably replaying one or two in our heads right now. I know I am, as I'm saying this. I felt like they lacked a little bit of that physicalness from that position. Javon Bullard brought it. Evan Williams brings it. Xavier McKinney brings it. They needed it from their corners. And I think they did that with Brandon and Damani Jackson. Now, we'll see if Damani Jackson's going to get. He's a 6th-rounder. I get it, and he's not a lock to make this team like Brandon is. But I think that's what's going to help him make this team is, can he contribute on special teams? Can he be that gunner? And if he brings that physical athleticism to the table, he's going to have a shot to get some reps. And let's face it, the depth of this cornerback group, I would say almost every single job is up for grabs. So don't immediately count out Damani Jackson just because he's a 6th-round pick. Obviously, he played at Alabama. He's played in some big games. He's played up against some really good competition in the SEC. He's experienced down there. But I'm excited for these two because I think you're seeing a little bit of a change in terms of what they bring to that room, the style, the speed, and them just being more physical. And I think you have to be with some of these wide receivers in this league too, and, of course, in the run support. As a few of you noted, too, I really like what Surveyor said about, with Chris McKellen, the defensive tackle coming over from Missouri. I like what Surveyor said about quarterbacks getting it out quicker, getting the ball out quicker. And you need that massive guy to push the center guard combo up the middle and get in that quarterback's face. You bring up Chris's tape, and a lot of it, too, you're going to see, and if you read some of the reports, a lot of pass deflections. He's got those massive hands, those big arms, right? And I think that's a really good point by Surveyor. And I can't believe I'm complimenting Surveyor. But I think that's a really good point that you look at this. I mean, look at the Lions. They like to get the ball out quick, right? Same with maybe Caleb Williams and the Bears at times. We talk about playing press coverage and being aggressive in that. Well, they got a couple more physical corners, but now you bring in a guy that, he can push that center into the quarterback's face and get those big old paws up and maybe deflect some passes and kind of take away those options of a quick passing game. And I was one of them too. I looked at this draft. I wanted them to get a defensive tackle that was going to help stop the run. And maybe that meant more of a typical straight-up big nose tackle in the middle, early downs, first and second down type of defensive lineman. And his only job there is to help stop the run. Well, with Chris, and there was bigger defensive linemen that they could have potentially gotten to fill that role. Chris brings a little bit more versatility to that. I wouldn't pay him as just a traditional big nose tackle, like Howard Green or Gilbert Brown or whatever you want to say. He does provide some versatility and a little bit more pass rush into this too. So it's intriguing, and I think there's something there with that pick that, all right, I'm excited to see what the Packers can do with this. And you look at Jonathan Gannon and the success that he's had with some defensive linemen over the years too, it adds a little bit more intrigue to this. Danny Dennis Sutton, I think, I was wondering before the draft started, everybody thought Green Bay pegged as an edge rusher, and I was like, okay, is that going to be the position that maybe they don't get? Because it feels like there's a position group where everybody says they should go after, and they don't get one. I was wondering about edge rusher because they invested 2 picks into edge rushers last year. I think given where he was at in round 4 at pick 120, the fact that Danny Dennis Sutton was still there, it was to me, it was a no-brainer pick. Bring him in. Grab him. There's nothing wrong with having too many pass rushers in this league, especially with maybe a little uncertainty outside of Micah Parsons. I think there's potential there for a Colin Oliver. There's potential there for a Barron Sorrell. We're still a little bit up in the air about Lucas Van Ness. Brenton Cox Jr., he's a great athletic player too, but let's also be real. There's some uncertainty. So protect yourself and maybe get a little bit more depth. And you got a very talented edge rusher. The fact that he was still there at pick 120, I think surprised a lot of people and maybe even surprised Green Bay at that point in time. One of the player comps is Kingsley Enagbare. Dennis Sutton is right now, he's probably best at stopping the run and run support. But you know what? Let's get him working out with Micah Parsons and such too, and then maybe develop those pass rushing skills. And then only one offensive lineman, but again, you only have 6 picks. You're not going to have a lot of bites at the apple. But you bring in a versatile interior lineman with Jagger Burton coming over from Kentucky. And it checks a lot of boxes in what the Packers look for in their offensive lineman. He plays multiple spots. He's played left guard. He's played right guard. He's played center. Hasn't played tackle. But I honestly feel like this is probably going to be a guy. I would be surprised if by the end of the season he's starting. And I think eventually he is a future starter on the line. Is that center or is that guard? Right now, I'd probably say he's going to replace Aaron Banks. Or Sean Ryan replaces Aaron Banks and he goes to center. One of those 2 scenarios is going to be at play. So he is, to me, in my opinion, an eventual starter too. Talked a little bit about Jackson already, and then, of course, Trey Smack, the big leg. A lot of people, top kicker in this draft. Did play at Florida, so I know there's some people concerned about warm weather coming up here. I know he grew up in Maryland. The frozen tundra. There's people debating about that. There's one thing we can't deny, and the dude's got a leg, okay? And we're seeing the trend in the NFL with all these teams. They want the power. They want the distance. But let's get some accuracy on this too. And the guy was 10 of 13 with 50 yards or more in field goals this past season. And kicking in the SEC too. Competition. Apparently, he hit it off with the new special teams coordinator with the Packers, Cam Akord. So, I feel like he is probably, of all these picks right now, even though he's the last pick of this Packers class, he's probably a starter right away. But eventually, and I shouldn't. Don't close the door on Brandon Cisse either. I think right now Keyshawn's probably slotted in as a starter. I think after that it should be jobs open for the other boundary corner. And I think Brandon's got a good chance at getting that over Carrington Valentine or over St. Just. And I'm not saying that Keyshawn Nixon is the best option, but I just feel like given what they've got on the depth chart right now, that he's probably going to be locked in for a corner spot. But what I think these guys also do, they bring some competition. They bring some nice depth to definitely areas of big need on this team. And I'm excited. And I think that's what you have to be with draft classes, with players coming in. You're looking at some positivity. You're looking at, did they get better? I think the Packers got better. We can only base it off of paper. I get that. But I think they got better. I think, practically every team got better. But this fit needs, this fit holes, This got some depth into it, and I think you've got some intriguing talent here. Athleticism and physicality are the two words that come to mind describing every single one of these picks, even the kicker. I think they got a little tougher. And I think that was something that was lacking from this team, is just maybe that grit. You know, everybody says, got to get some dogs. I think they kind of got some of those guys in this one. I hope so, at least. I hope that transitions into the regular season. All right, let's take a quick break. I want to talk some Jayden Reed, too. What was the position group, if you're a Packers fan? And again, I want to hear, even if you're not a Packers fan, I want to hear your insight about your favorite team. Okay? I want to hear your insight about your favorite team. But what was the position group that maybe surprised you a little bit that they did not address, whether it was the Packers or your favorite group? I'm not going to speak for every Packers fan, but maybe was it a little surprised they didn't get wide receiver? I think after the Jayden Reed signing extension, it changed a little bit. And hearing Matt LaFleur talk on Saturday kind of reinforced that to me. We'll go through that coming up here after this quick break. Hy-Vee springtime party going on this week. We got Tiki Deals. That's right, Tiki Deals. So head to their Facebook page, the Hy-Vee and Eau Claire Facebook page, to check out some of their latest deals this week. We're talking about $5 for $5 signature brats. We've got look at that cake, $12.99 cookie cake. We've got pineapple on sale, King's Hawaiian rolls for just $3.99. I was over there yesterday doing some grocery shopping and such, and saw them putting up some of the decorations for their Tiki Deals and for their springtime party going on this weekend. With graduation season coming up here too, don't forget, if you got to get maybe planning some graduation parties, maybe some food or cakes, they can handle that too. Catering, or in their bakery department, I saw some of their cakes out there for graduation and such. So that is that time of year too. So if you're planning that right now, look no further than our good friends at Hy-Vee in Eau Claire. Zach on Section 105 says, really surprised they did draft a running back. I know we got Jacobs and Brooks, but we still don't know if Lloyd can stay healthy. Highlight of the weekend, best and worst of the weekend. Our VFW Post 305 one is Jayden Reed signing. The downside is the Brewers losing a few games. So Packers, Friday, it was reported before the second round of the draft kicked off that they had signed Jayden Reed to a contract extension. I didn't have that on my bingo card. I don't think a lot of people had that on their bingo card. And one of my position groups that I was maybe a little surprised, again, only 6 picks. It's hard, obviously, to address everything. But I was maybe a little surprised they did not come away with a wide receiver after losing Romeo Doubs to free agency and trading Dontavian Wicks. Christian Washington's going to get an extension. I'm pretty confident in saying that. Wasn't sure about Jayden Reed, so would they maybe go and get another receiver? I think the Reed signing may have changed that, but also I want to play a clip. This was from Ryan Wood, who covers the Packers, asked Matt LaFleur a question about, losing Romeo Doubs and losing Dontavian Wicks. You don't draft a wide receiver to replace them. How this changes your offense. I want to play this clip. And then I want to talk a little bit about this here. So, again, audio courtesy from Ryan Wood, PackersNews.com.
In both Romeo and Dontavian, I think there's something like 430 targets over the past 3 seasons that have left your offense in the past month. You haven't drafted a receiver. How does that change your perspective on the passing game as a play caller with having fewer options, but still obviously a pretty good top of the depth chart?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, if, we're going to continue to push, especially the bottom of the roster, to try to help make us better. But I think I don't think we've ever lacked talent at that position. And I think a year ago, I think we all saw it, man. It was hard to get everybody the amount of touches that we'd like to get them. So I think this is an opportunity to kind of reset everything, and we've got more opportunities, I would say, for everybody in that room.
Is it much easier now to get Christian, Matthew, Tucker the touches that you want? Not to say that you want depth, but is it easier to make sure that those guys get fed the way that they should?
Yeah, going into it, I would say that, I mean, when there's less bodies or less proven bodies, then those guys are going to get the first stops at it. But it doesn't mean by any stretch that, I mean, everything is fluid in this league, and you got to go out and compete to be your best each and every day and earn your opportunity.
All right, so again, that was audio courtesy from Ryan Wood. And, you know, you look at the last few years, and obviously the Packers have had a lot of depth in that receiving department. It's so much to the fact where, remember a couple of years ago, we were asking the question, do they need a number one wide receiver? Do they have a number one wide receiver? Do they need a go-to one? And the narrative was kind of always, hey, spreading the ball around, spreading the wealth and all that. And now it kind of seems maybe a change in philosophy. Now, I don't know if this is directly related to, you know, kind of maybe some people unhappy with their role, that they had too many pass catchers, so there's not enough football to go around. Was it, you know, trying to make everybody happy, and then ultimately, you know, different scenarios when we try to make everybody happy, you make nobody happy, you know, sort of thing. I mean, you look at it still, even with no Romeo, no Dontavian Wicks, they don't draft a receiver. Green Bay is still very top-heavy. I feel like they've got really good talent, maybe even more so than some teams at that position. You've got Christian Watson. You've got Jaden Reed. I think there's all the confidence in the world in Matthew Golden that he's going to be a really good wide receiver. You got Tucker Kraft in this thing, and you want to get him as many touches as possible. You throw Josh Jacobs into the running game here, and he's I would say, above average in the passing game too. I think now, kind of listening to LaFleur with the Jaden Reed signing, knowing that Watts is going to be extended, I'm like 99% confident in that. I'm 99% confident that Tucker Kraft's going to get re-signed. You've got 3 pass catchers there. You can focus on, all right, how do we get the ball to our best playmakers? Instead of just trying to make everybody happy, instead of just trying to spread the ball out, how do we just focus on getting the ball to our best playmakers? And it's not to say that they got to be hyper-focused on one guy. I know a lot of people criticized, you know, at the end of the Packers, Rodgers and Davante Adams tenure, that Rodgers was focusing too much on Davante. Well, after Davante, there was, Allen Lazard? I would argue that right now they've got more options than what they did then, okay? But to be able to maybe hyper-focus on those 4, the Watsons, the Krafts, the Reeds, and the Matthew Goldens, along with the running game of a Josh Jacobs, you get the ball in your playmakers' hands instead of trying to be all, hey, let's spread this out and make sure everybody gets their equal share. I don't care about that. This is the National Football League. It's not about equal shares. It's not about trying to make everybody happy. I know you want to get guys happy so they're buying into your system, but right now, you got to win some ball games, and you got to win some big ball games. And by doing that is getting the ball in the hands of your best playmakers. So I think with that Wicks trade, I think we all kind of figured Dobbs is going to be out. I know there was some rumors that they were kind of having some informal conversations and such, but he was probably on his way out. Now you move on from Wicks. You get a draft pick in that. You don't draft another receiver. You're ready to roll with your top 4 pass catchers. And now you can build around them, and then you add in the running game with Josh Jacobs. Sure, if there's an injury, it might affect, you know, your depth a little bit. But that's the case for a lot of position groups. That's sports. That's the National Football League. It's going to happen. You know, the one name that's still not being thrown out there is Savion Williams. To me, that is such a wild card with this wide receiver depth. You invested a 3rd-round pick into the guy last year. And I don't know if they know how to properly utilize him yet at this point. All right. Quick break, and then we'll wrap up the 3rd hour. We'll do a little Glory Days coming up in the next hour here too. We'll get back to some more baseball talk as well as the Brewers. How concerned are you right now, Brewers fans? Are you like, no, it's still too early? We're not into May yet. There's going to be hiccups. There's going to be some stretches that aren't going to be the greatest. How you feeling about your squad right now? Quick break, and we'll be back to wrap up the 3rd hour coming up in just a couple minutes. It's grilling season, baby, and no better place to go to stock up and load up than Mike's Star Market on the west side of Eau Claire. And I want to draw your attention, too, because coming up in just a couple of weeks at the Northern Wisconsin State Fairgrounds is Barbecue Fest. And I'm going to be there for a little bit on May 16th with our friends at Mike's Star Market. But Barbecue Fest going on May 15th through the 16th. Got on Friday, Fairgrounds open for the grillers and vendors to set up and such. But social live music 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Friday night. But Saturday, oh, here we go, 11 a.m. Barbecue Fest is open to the public. We got a cornhole tournament registration. We've got music going on, 1 p.m., limited quantity of People's Choice ballots, sample cards available for purchase. So check it out at nwsfa.com for the schedule of events and such. But, yeah, I'm going to hang out for a little bit because our good friends from Mike's Star Market going to be participating, going to be over there too. So stop by and say hi. But with it being grilling season, with it being barbecue season, smoker season and that, get the high-quality products, get the stuff at Mike's Star Market in Eau Claire. All right, so coming up next hour, we'll get to a little bit more baseball talk. But, hey, continue to send me your thoughts on your favorite team's draft class. How do you think they did? All right, how do you think they did? Let me know. What was your favorite pick from your team's draft class? Or maybe the pick that intrigues you the most? And what surprised you the most? Maybe it was, man, I'm really surprised they didn't do this. I'm surprised they did that. I'm surprised they were able to get this person. Why did they draft that person when they were on the board and they were available? A lot of you right now, the biggest surprise in terms of Packers, you're going with the kicker. And I'll be honest, when I found out about it at baseball on Saturday, it's like, oh, they traded up for a kicker. I was like, really? But then you kind of take a step back and be like, okay, I get it. I understand it. Now we got a kicking competition. Unless for some reason Trace Mack just is awful, maybe a Brett Conway situation. Remember that? Luckily they had Ryan Longwell. They brought in Ryan Longwell in that. But unless it's something bad like that, I still feel like Trace Mack is going to be the guy to open up the season. So, but maybe in the next hour, we'll see if we get to it, kind of take a look at what the current depth chart looks like. And I call this the next wave of free agency in the NFL. After the draft, we're going to see veterans sign one-year deals, kind of plug some holes in that. So with that being said, for your favorite team, and in this case, if it is the Packers, what's the position that you would like to see the Packers maybe bring in a veteran for a one-year deal? Is it a defensive tackle, maybe a Calais Campbell? Do you feel like they need another veteran corner, another offensive lineman, maybe a backup tackle? What do you think is that position that you'd like to see Green Bay maybe add a one-year veteran to? So hit me up. Let me know. Okay. But I do want to get back to some baseball talk, and we're going to do a little Summer Jam Glory Days coming up in the final hour here too. So, but shot clock's going to cut me off. We've got some news updates, and then we'll kick off the final quarter. Flying through on this rainy, windy, wet Monday morning again, depending on where you are listening to us from. So I want your input. I want your expertise. I want your analysis. So I want to hear from you in this final hour if you haven't chimed in already. But we'll kick it off talking some more Brewers baseball. How you feeling right now, Brewers fans, about your team? You getting a little nervous? Getting a little nervous? Frustrated? You're like, nah, we're not even to May yet. Let's talk about it, all right? Quick break, and we'll be right back.